So hello gamers and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you the top 10 underrated sites in Phantom Forces. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're new, and comment down below your favorite site, and watch until the end and comment if I missed a site that you guys think is underrated. Yeah, let's get into it. The first site is going to be going to the Pillad or Pylad 3. Now this is a really interesting looking optic that has a really nice niche that makes it really good for low recoil guns, DMRs, and maybe sniper rifles. For some reason, because of the optic picture with the circle, you hit a lot of headshots with this. I don't know why, but it just makes you hit headshots. And also it has a 2.2 times zoom, which is a little bit goofy, but at the same time that is a little bit more, see, a second headshot, a little bit more than a coyote sight. So this is a really good medium range optic without being, you know, like sometimes unnecessary ACOG sight or scope. Those sights are good, but they do have a lot of zoom, and 2.2x is a little bit more than a coyote, a delta, but not so much that it's completely unusable in close range. In fact, it's a pretty good close range sight as well. At the number 2 spot though, we have, and I'll switch to an automatic gun for this, the Cobra EKP or Cobra sight. And maybe the Cobra is the more underrated of these because I feel like people are using the Cobra EKP a little bit, but I don't see the regular Cobra a lot. But these are very similar sights. These sights are basically if you want kind of a different reticle on a reflex, and a reflex that's a tiny bit higher up off of your gun, it's going to be more like a reflex sight in how the reticle and stuff looks. However, it has a different red dot. What the heck? I just got a kill from so far. And that makes it a little bit more interesting than something like a reflex, which is a good sight, of course, but it only has a dot. And like a dot is cool. It's a cool sight. But is it interesting? Is it different? Not really. The third sight here is the Acro P1 sight, and I got recommended to set up with this one on stream. And I'm gonna be real, I kind of overestimated how usable this sight is. Is it great? Not really in my opinion, but it is really good for what it does. That is, it's kind of like a reflex, but it's just different, you know? It's a little more slim, I guess. The dot is really tiny on it, which is really nice. Like the dot is so small, and it can be considered a tiny bit like restrictive because the borders are pretty small on it, but it kind of like boxes in a target, which can actually kind of help you to aim a little bit better. Not like a ton or anything. I don't think it's going to make you super accurate or like fix your aim if you're not that great at the game or anything, but I think it is a pretty decent sight overall. Definitely not my favorite sight in the game, but I will say yes, it is pretty underrated, and I think I've hated on this sight a little bit in the past. And let me just clear that up. I don't think it's a bad sight anymore. I don't think it's a great sight in my opinion. Definitely not like a sight that I would run on every single gun all the time, but like it's a pretty good sight. I'm not gonna lie. The fourth sight is going to be going to the UH Gen 1 or just UH1. And this is a very interesting sight that was added, I think, the same update as the Acro P1. This is not going to be the best sight for the MP510 because the MP510 has a bit of recoil. However, this is a really unique sight, I'd say. It's kind of like the Acro P1, but it does zoom in quite a bit. However, that box is bigger, so you still kind of like aim in on people, but you have a lot of zoom while doing it, which is actually really helpful for something like a DMR. And also, it's kind of just like an EOTech, but because of that extra zoom, a little bit like a longer range variant of an EOTech. And the reticle's a bit different from the EOTech as well, and I just love how it moves like this. It looks really more realistic than other sights, that like telescoping type effect, and it has a 2.3 sight magnification, which makes it really good for a little bit like longer range engagements. That's actually more zoom than the Pillad, which is kind of crazy. Our fifth sight is going to be a sight that's a little bit more used, but I still feel like is probably one of the best sights in the entire game because it has objective benefits to your gun as well as being super clean now, and that is the Mars sight. Now the Mars sight actually gives you red laser benefits, so better fire recovery speed and a little bit better recoil. However, it's an extremely accurate but a little bit high off of your gun red dot sight that's super clean looking. And this used to be a 2 times zoom, but then they lowered it down to 1.5, and for some reason that's all that this sight needed. I don't know why, because you think, oh yeah, well, a red dot sight with a 2 times, that would be kind of cool, kind of like a coyote, but like you get some benefits. That just wasn't really that helpful for this sight. I don't know why. People do think that the coyote should zoom in less. I don't really agree with that. I think the 2 times on the on the coyote is decent, and I think it does have that niche. However, the Mars with the 1.5x, I don't know why, but it just goes so hard. It makes no sense. I just love this sight now. I've actually transitioned into using this sight quite a bit. It's definitely still not my main sight, but it is definitely one of the better sights in the game. In fact, you could probably say that this is the best sight in the entire game, objectively, because it has no downside. It has a 1.5 times zoom, and it just has no benefits to handling, walk speed, aiming speed, anything like that, but it has red laser benefits. So basically like a DCL, but a little bit less extra recoil control, but none of the downsides that the DCL has, because the DCL has a lot of downsides. I might go as far as to say that the DCL is a little bit overrated because it doesn't really reduce recoil. It reduces rotational recoil by 5%. Guess what? That doesn't really matter on most of your guns. The reason that that sight has such little recoil is because it has a 1-time zoom, so it looks like you have no recoil. You don't actually have no recoil, but it can be helpful for like perceived recoil. So I'm not going to say it's like an awful sight or anything, but maybe a tad bit overrated because you don't actually need it for like your average no recoil setup. I would prefer alt aim, definitely. I don't really use the DCL at all, but like I can see why people do. I'm going to say it now, Mars is a better sight than the the DCL. For our sixth site, we have the Barska Electro. The Barska Electro is a bit known, but like if you have the Coyote and you have some kills and you like the Coyote, try out the Barska Electro because it is literally the Coyote with a slightly different model and a different reticle, and the reticle on it is very good. Is it objectively better than the Coyote? Technically not. It's actually a little bit more obstructive if you think about it because like it has a bigger reticle. Maybe that's why people don't use it as much, but I think it's worth using. Site number 7 is going to be going to the Micro Dot Mini. In my opinion, this site looks goofy and I don't think it's the best site in the game, but it's actually a lot better than you'd expect. It does feel a little bit restrictive for sure because actual reticle itself is super tiny, but the dot is a lot bigger. So it kind of feels like, oh, that would be kind of bad, but it's almost like an OEG because the dot is so big, it kind of just has that same OEG type mentality where you just put the dot on them and get the kill. And that kind of sounds like just any other site, but this is definitely different, you know? It's super accurate as well. I think this site could definitely benefit from a bit of a rework. I don't think like the model needs to be this small, you know, but I do like the dot. I do like how it's blue to start, which, you know, other sites you could change the dot, but this is basically a free color change to your dot. Let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments because I don't know if this is super popular. When it got added, I did see a couple people complain about it and I don't think it's as bad as some people would expect. And yeah, it's a pretty good site overall. Next up, we have a site known as the Micro.SRS. This is kind of like the Micro Mini. However, it's not mini. The only problem with this one is that it does have that crazy color change on the actual reticle, which is weird. However, the site itself is a little bit like the old Mars. I really like that. It's a massive circle and it has the dot in the middle, and the color change is definitely not like a good thing. It's kind of weird because I feel like it would definitely be more of an acquired taste, but I do like the reticle itself, and I think it's actually pretty good for LRC combat because it has such like a massive ring, but it has a 2x zoom as well. I think if it didn't have the colored glass, it would be so much better. In fact, it would actually be like a runner-up for the Coyote, but because the Coyote is so much more unobstructive because of the color, I don't think this is going to be extremely popular or anything, but I do like the idea behind it, and I think if they changed the color of the glass, this would actually be like a way more popular site. Maybe try that out, Stylist. But maybe people do like the color on it. I don't think they do though. I think that's just something you have to put up with when you use the site. I am kind of finding it to be annoying at like very far range. I don't really like pseudo scopes in this game too much, outside of maybe like an occasional ACOG on my guns. However, one that I will actually give kind of a shout out to is the PKA, because the PKA has two very interesting things about it. Firstly, it has this zoom, which is pretty good. The colored glass isn't too bad, but secondly, it has an alt fire that is kind of underrated, I'd say, because it's this. That's actually a cool scope. Is it necessarily the best scope in the game or anything? No, but it's good. Like, it's actually pretty good. And it takes a sight that I don't really like too much and turns it into a very nice pseudo sniper scope that actually works on automatic guns quite a bit. The default sight magnification is 3 times, and I think the alt fire might actually also be 3 times. Usually when you have an alt aim on a sight, it doesn't actually have the exact same zoom. However, this doesn't seem to have that because of one specific and interesting quirk about a 3 times sight. That is because it doesn't have a shift to steady, which means no scope sway at all. The reason I say this is kind of interesting is because only a 3 times or lower optic will have that, i.e., you know, the Malcolm 3 times doesn't have scope sway, but the Malcolm 6 times does. So I think that's why this is a 3 times, which is kind of interesting because it is, you know, a different fire on the gun. That's a 3 times and it's still 3 times, but this feels way better. In fact, this is actually a really good pseudo sniper scope. I love how you just spawned on your teammate after I killed him, dude. Good. Because the zoom level isn't too high, it works really well with automatic guns. I could see why you'd also use it on a DMR. And if you really wanted to, you could use this sight, but I don't really like this one. I really like the alt aim. As you can see, it's about the same zoom. Yeah, it is exactly the same. So I guess it's kind of like you're looking closer to the sight. I don't know how that would work in reality, but this would actually be more like an actual sight if you had a scope in real life, because why would you cover all this vision? You're just looking at this. That's how you get the magnification. And also it should only zoom in like the area that your scope is covering, not all of your vision, because for some reason, all your other vision is zoomed in, which makes no sense. So that would definitely help in a video game, because video games are not realistic, especially PF, so I don't care about realism in this game. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy, I think that's going to do it. If you guys want to see top 10 actual sites and which ones I think are the best, make sure to like and subscribe. But I will see you guys in the next one. Peace. Have a nice day.